Hi everyone, my name is Karishma and this is my channel, Karishma Explores Life. In this video, we're going to be walking around the streets of Kathmandu. We'll visit Durbar Square and we'll see some temples along the way. So before any delay, let's get straight into it. I started my morning at my hotel in the Tamil area of Kathmandu. I chose this area because it was more central and I felt safer there because there were a lot of tourists and there were a ton of restaurants and hotels in walking distance. And there were loads of shops around for any souvenir shopping that I wanted to do, so it was great. I stayed at this hotel for almost 9 nights out of my stay in Kathmandu. And honestly, I came up to the roof almost every single morning just to look at the view and take in the mountains because you could see that from the rooftop. And it is such a beautiful area with all these plants, and you'll see some things that have been blown away by the wind the night before because it was quite windy a few nights because there were these rainstorms that would roll in. But overall, the atmosphere of this place was immaculate and I would recommend this 100%. The first place that I visited was the Patan Durbar Square, which is located in the Lalitpur region of Kathmandu, and this was approximately 15 minutes away from my hotel in the Tamil area, and this was by taxi. I do recommend getting a guide here because it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and there is a lot to take in. There's a lot of temples and a lot of squares and each have their own name and unique history. So I highly recommend taking a guide and just getting a walk around of the area as well. But a short history that I can share is that this square has really ancient roots. So the current structures are believed to be from the 16th to the 18th century, and they were built by the Mulla dynasty kings. And at that time, the place was known as Patan, which is why the square today is known as Patan Durbar Square. There are a whole bunch of temples and courtyards within the square itself. So you can go into some of the temples and look at the architecture there as well. And this type of architecture is known as Newari architecture, which is a combination of the wooden structures that you see and some of the bricks as well. That's what I understood from the way the guide explained it to me. And there is a museum that you can go into that's included in the fees of the ticket, and that will give you more information on the history of the place as well. And some of the square actually was affected during the earthquake that happened in Nepal, and that's why you're seeing that a lot of reconstruction is still happening and some of the structures are closed for visits. So just beware of that. There are a whole bunch of temples that you will notice within the square. The main temples are a mixture of both Buddhist and Hindu temples. Some of the major temples in the complex are the Teleju Bhavani Mandir, which is a temple for the goddess Teleju Bhavani. Then there is the Golden Temple, which is a temple for Buddha. Then there is the Krishna Mandir, which is the temple for the god Krishna. Then there is the Vishwanath Temple and the Bhimsen Temple. And you can go into most of these temples. Just keep in mind that because of the construction, sometimes they may be closed, and just to be respectful if you do go into these temples. The architecture is absolutely beautiful and totally worth visiting, so I highly recommend. What you're seeing here is the Golden Temple. I was only able to get footage inside this temple because some of the others don't really allow you to take pictures or videos inside, and a few of them were actually closed for construction, so I only got the outside that you saw in earlier videos. There are also a bunch of smaller courtyards within the bigger square, and these courtyards are called chowks, and each of them have their unique names, but the one that stood out to me the most is called the Sundari Chowk, and it has this sunken water tank that's called the Shahiti, which was a place where the Mullah kings would take these ceremonial baths. And I'm going to insert some pictures here because I wasn't really able to get a video of the chalk itself, but you'll see how detailed this sunken water tank was and how beautiful it is. Next, I made my way over to the Kathmandu Durbar Square, and I hired a guide here as well because, again, I like learning about the history behind each of the places and the significance of each of the temples, and I feel like for me it's easier to learn when someone is telling me while I'm there versus me just reading it online. And I highly recommend it because the guide was able to show me some places that I would have missed otherwise. So if that's for you, I highly recommend hiring a guide. You'll notice that some of these buildings look brand new, and that's because they were reconstructed after the 2015 earthquake that happened in Nepal, because a lot of this square was completely destroyed and had to be rebuilt from scratch. One of the more unique places in this Durbar Square is the Kumari Ghar. The Kumari Ghar is the home of the Kumari, who is a prepubescent girl who has been chosen as the living reincarnation of the goddess Daleju. The Kumaris are usually chosen at a very young age, around 3 or 4 years old, after they go through a bunch of trials, and once they pass these trials, they are deemed to be living reincarnation of the goddess Daleju. And once they are chosen, they are brought to this place to live. They complete their studies here, they live here, and they are not allowed to leave this home until there's some festivals or there's special occasions happening. And once they get their periods, they are no longer believed to be the Kumari anymore, and a new Kumari is chosen. The Kumari does make a public appearance every day to give her blessings, but it's important to remember that you are not allowed to take any pictures or videos of her, so if you are there at that time, just make sure you put your cameras and your phones away. There were also quite a few temples of significance in the Kathmandu Durbar Square. Some of the ones that I visited were the Vishnu Temple, the Panchmukhi Hanuman Temple, then there was the bigger Daleju Bhavani Temple, and Akal Bhairav Temple. And these are all significant temples that are located within the square, There were quite a few smaller temples there as well, and if you wanted to visit each of these you would need multiple days, but I did not have that much time, so the one day that I was there I visited as many temples as I could. There were several different museums on premise at the Kathmandu Durbar Square. One of the ones that I visited that I really enjoyed was the museum run by the government of Nepal, dedicated to the royal family, and it had a lot of information on the past dynasties and the previous royal family, and it did not contain any information on the murder that happened in the 2000s in the royal family. I did ask the guide about this, but he seemed kind of reluctant, and I didn't really want to push him on that because it is a very sensitive subject, so I left it at that. And while on the way back to my hotel, I had to stop for a little bit for a procession of pilgrims to clear out. They were coming for the Leju Bhavani Mandir all the way from India, so there were a lot of them, and they were playing songs and music and praying, and it was such a nice atmosphere, and it was such a great way to end my day. Thank you so much for watching my video, and if you enjoyed that, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. See you next time. Bye!